Welcome back to the Law&Crime Network. My name is Bob Bianchi. I'll be with you here from 12 to 3. We're doing the Moorer case, but before we get started, because we got a lot on the plate today, and we even have a special that's going to be going on. It's going to be fascinating. I'm really looking forward to doing it. But we have Kramer with us again today. Ross, welcome. Good to see you.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Okay. He's from Winston and Strawn in New York City. He's been named the Rising Star Super Lawyer since 2014. 2018 Legal Aid Society Pro Bono Publico Award. You didn't think I'd figure that out, but I found
got
it.
it.
And he was a law clerk in the United States District Court, Southern District, Criminal Defense Attorney, State and Federal Court. So, Ross, listen, we got a lot of activity in this Moore case, and I know specifically you've been pretty much watching most of her testimony, probably a lot more than I have. But right now they're on break, and we're going to show a clip, and we're going to come back, and we're going to ask you about what you've been finding from this testimony. I always say very risky for a defendant to take a stand, especially in a circumstantial evidence case. We'll be right back. I'm back. So this is the Love trial. That was the 911 caller. Ross, he's testifying. He heard a scream, 2 shots, saw Kendra Hatcher on the ground, and he saw the getaway car leaving. Now, this case was broken by the cops because people in this conspiracy decided to talk. You were just saying off camera, the problem when you're involved in something like this, that eventually somebody's going to wind up giving data and information.
Or we could look at it the other way. The benefit and the way that law enforcement is able to break these is that they only really have to get one person who's involved and deep in the conspiracy. So a lot of times these cases turn on someone who's arrested on unrelated charges, maybe a drug charge, and says to a prosecutor, you know, I don't want to face the 10 years. Let me tell you about some other scheme that I was involved in. And even years later, they can break these cases in large conspiracies. You know, that's how organized crime gets taken down. They just need some cooperators. In this day and age, that's even how white-collar organizations, companies are getting taken down. You get someone on the inside who really has intimate knowledge of a scheme and a conspiracy and starts talking to law enforcement.
Yeah, and let's talk also about the involvement of the citizen investigators, or the citizens, especially with social media and all the electronic data, because this case began to be broken when Jose Ortiz calls the Dallas PD and states he loaned his 1996 Jeep Cherokee to Brenda Delgado, who turns out to be the alleged mastermind in this case, and he saw it on the media, and that's what started getting these witnesses to come in and eventually participants in the conspiracy to start talking.
Yeah, it's amazing in this day and age the kind of breaks that come out by videos coming out and going viral on Facebook or shown on the news, and what ordinary citizens can notice and help law enforcement with.
Absolutely. Hey, guys, listen, Law&Crime Network, we are all over the spectrum today. We got a lot going on. Get into that chat room. We'd love to be able to answer your questions. Always appreciate the support. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back on the other end with Ross. Okay, welcome back in the Love case. So, as we were talking before, the way this case breaks is this guy Ortiz, a good citizen, talks about giving the truck to Brenda Delgado. Delgado, who is supposedly the mastermind in this love relationship, which we'll get to in a minute, agrees to speak to the police and says she allowed the car to be given to Crystal Cortez. Cortez then gives an admission. Love gets brought in, the hitman in the case. He gives an admission in the case. The motive in the case is Delgado dated Hatcher's boyfriend and was upset, and the victim was now dating him, and there's lots of anecdotal evidence about that. We listened to a 911 call. We listened to the person who made the call. We've listened to the paramedic at the scene. These are easy witnesses for the prosecution. We have, obviously, a law enforcement officer on the stand. So, Ross, I mean, so far, this is the way this case goes down. They've got motive, means, opportunity, and witnesses.
Yeah, I mean, this is a nice way to start the case for the prosecution. They're establishing the death. They're setting the mood here for this jury. A jury already knows that this is a death penalty case and is taking this, I'm sure, very, very seriously. But, I mean, they're getting the easy parts out of the way, and then the cross-examination of the key witnesses will really tell which way this case is going to break.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ross Kramer. We're going to go to a break. We'll be back on the other end. Okay, we got a long way to go before we get to the substance of this witness's testimony. Ross, listen, we were here kind of in shock. I went into the chat room, talked to a couple of our jurors in the chat room. They always have great commentary. You brought out that the victim's pictures hanging on the wall. I hadn't seen that, but now I do, in her pediatric dentist jacket. Wow, I've never seen anything like that before. It's not really evidential at all, and it's kind of like she's like watching over the trial.
I've never seen anything like that either. I mean, there are 2 portraits hanging behind the witness, and they're facing the witness's direction and kind of smiling. It's almost as if she's overlooking the proceedings here. Sometimes you'll see in an opening statement where the prosecution wants to put up a big picture, like sort of a glamour shot of a victim to personalize them and give them a human face. I've never seen them stay up during trial directly behind the witness stand for jurors to see a witness testifying and then see the victim right behind. It's really bizarre. I'm amazed that a judge and a defense lawyer allowed that to happen. I don't even know, those had evidence stickers on it like we talked about. I'm not even sure the relevance of those as exhibits in the case.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we noticed those evidence stickers were there, maybe just marked for identification or probably for evidence now because the jury's seeing it. But nevertheless, all evidence in a trial that has to be admitted because it brings relevancy to the case. And a picture of her in her dental jacket just doesn't seem to do that for me, especially, like you say, hanging over the witness stand. It's what we call victim impact testimony coming out, which is really for sentencing, not for the guilt phase of a case.
Yeah, I mean, the standard for relevance in these cases is that it makes some material issue in the case more likely than not.
Right.
I don't see exactly what this is making more likely than not, especially being up the whole time in a death penalty case. This is a very strange move.
Ross just brought out a great point. All relevant evidence has to tend to lead to proving something or not in a case. This doesn't, in my mind, but anyway, the judge allowed it. We got to go to a break. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Listen, guys, this isn't just Ross Kramer here that's going to help us out with this, but we also have one of my faves, hashtag 4041, because he shot a 40-point game and a 41-point game when he was in high school. Gene Rossi is with us. Again, Gene has trained thousands of people in his career, a phenomenal, prolific prosecutor, does defense work, lectures, he does it all. Gene, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon.
Okay, listen, I was talking with Ross before. I don't know if you got to hear this, but I just got to get into this. They got a picture of the victim, 2 or 3, hanging on the wall behind the witness stand in her dentist coat. Have you ever seen that before, Gene?
Repeat that, Bob. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, they have a picture of the victim in her dentist coat. That's hanging in at least two spots behind the witness stand. Have you ever seen the victim's picture being hung on the wall during the course of a trial like that?
Only if the defense attorneys have fallen asleep and passed out.
Yeah, well, apparently our producers tell us this isn't something that's necessarily unusual. It's happened in another Texas case before, but I find that odd. Also, Gene and Ross, let's go to you, Ross, for a second, because we talked about this a little bit. There are a lot of statements that were being given in this case. And, you know, under the Constitution, you have a right to confront your people, so statements just can't go in wholesale against you. How's the prosecution going to use these statements or not?
Well, this is an interesting point, I think, for viewers. So much in these trials goes on behind the scenes. This is a case where all of this was probably litigated with the court in written papers beforehand to see what would be allowed in and what not allowed in. The defendant's statements can probably be allowed in, but the co-conspirators, it's a very complex issue about parsing those statements. What they say about themselves may be allowed in, but what they say about the defendant may not be allowed in at all.
Right, and that's because the defendant has a right to cross-examine witnesses pursuant to the Constitution, and obviously his statement is an exception to the hearsay rule, but if you're to admit other statements that these other people had given against him, that's problematic. But again, I didn't expect to see a picture of a victim on the wall. Each state does things a little bit differently. We're going to go to a break, but we'll be back on the end with my two great guests. Stay tuned.